Boa tarde a todos.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are here again in this important event, Innovation Xperience, to talk about something that is really important, urban mobility, and how this subject includes several nuances in very specific situations and other that are very generic situations all over the world, not only here in our country of Brazil. As you have seen, I am a Brazilian with a different accent. I am a Brazilian from Cuba, but I'm naturalized Brazilian. And when I mention Cuba, but Cubans say, you're Felipe, you're Brazilian. And when I come back here to Brazil with a foreign accent, people say, hey, Felipe, you're Cuban. But actually, I'm Felipe from Brazil, from Cuba, from the world. And I'm here today to talk to my esteemed colleagues here. We have Afonso, we have Claudia, Moraes, and our dear friend Luis. And we're going to discuss the mission of their companies, the vision of their companies and their organizations about urban mobility. In urban mobility, we always need a citizen perspective of this matter. This is what requested from cities. This is the model of cities that was launched by UNESCO in 2018, which proposes intelligent cities, but not only intelligent cities. With cities with a lot of information available, but cities with a perspective that bring the humans as citizens. And this is what we're going to take the perspective of the organizations and companies and their individual perspectives as well. But before we start our discussion, I hope that we can have questions from our audience and contributions from our audience. I would like each one of our panelists here to introduce, and of course, we need to start with our lady. 1 minute, can you introduce yourself, Claudia? Can you hear me? Yes? Yes, we can hear you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Claudia Moraes. I'm CEO of Hyundai. Hyundai works with training, focusing on the mobility segment. We use technology to really affect the behavior of people and preserve lives. Hello, everyone. My name is Fernando. I'm Operation Director of Instituto Cordial. This is an institute for an independent research institute that works with data intelligence to support the players and the ecosystems to help them take decisions based on data and evidence. So we work together with governments and partnerships with the private initiative, so that public policies are based on other knowledge and not other things, so we can have the best public policies possible. Thank you again. And now, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Afonso Cagnino. Yes, can you hear him? Yeah, you can hear him. Okay. Institutional Relations Manager of the Yamaha Group here in Brazil, a manufacturer of motorbikes, and I'm specialized in technology. And Yamaha is a company that specializes in technology. And urban mobility depends on technology that is employed in vehicles. So we're going to talk about intelligent cities here, but also about people and intelligent vehicles as well. And I think this is going to be a great discussion. So I think this is the idea, not only talking about intelligent cities, but new cities, which is launched by UNESCO in 2018, and that's the idea. And to continue with our discussion, I would like to say that Marcos Carvalho and Victor Magnani, who are the main idealizers of this event, we always discuss about one of our dreams before this fourth edition, since the first, even before the first edition, which is to really talk about this type of cities and talk about why not build this with the contribution of society. So here today we have the opportunity to hear different criteria, different perspectives of people that represent different companies and organizations that have this concern. So I'd like to again ask Claudia to start our discussion, and this question is a question for all, but let's start from Claudia. This is more of a talk, not a lecture, right? Something more fluid. So I'm going to ask a question for all of you, and let's start with Claudia. And my question is, how is the city that we want in the future? How can we build this city with the contributions of your companies? Well, Felipe, nice. My perspective here is related to human behavior and inclusion of people, and thinking in a very direct way when we talk about mobility, when we talk about drivers, with the issue of Yamaha, these bikers who deliver products, they're in the traffic and they're exposed. We've seen the increase of people and the inclusion of these motorbikes, delivering food, delivering products. There's been increased in number of accidents as well. So if you think about, when you ask me what type of city we want a city where these people are respected, where these lives are preserved as well. And what we can do to contribute with that, I think it goes through education, especially education of the drivers of category A, which are motorcycle drivers, and sometimes to join the job market, they get their driver's license, buy a bike, and they do their deliveries to be able to have some income, and they're not prepared for the traffic itself, for the public space that is the road systems. And another point that's really important here, at this moment, with the increase of digital platforms regarding deliveries, who are the people who work at the front end with these companies? These drivers who drive these bikes and deliver these products. So from my perspective, they need to be included, they need to be trained, and the companies must assume the responsibilities for this to change their behaviors. And to change their behaviors, and there are many ways that we can give this training with technology. It's the most practical way, and the way we understand that we can change this scenario. So can you tell me a little bit more how your company contributes with that? Yes, for sure. So we have a hub for education today that is currently one of the main hubs in our country when we talk about traffic education. We produce a lot of digital content with a focus on the audience that we trained, and what are their pains, what are their needs. And we also have data and technology centers that allow us to use simulators. As you can see in the first floor, there's a motorbike simulator it's a partnership between Hyundai and Yamaha. We can train some situations that are impossible to see in public roads, which are risk situations. How can they learn some things without putting themselves at risk in real situation, right? It's impossible to do so. So the simulator is a technology that uses a software that supports these situations. And after that, we have data. All of our training sessions, we collect a lot of data, and the driver's profile, and how the managers, the fleet managers, how they can improve to change the behavior of these drivers. Each person has different needs and different views, and our training are formatted according to these biases. Thank you. Okay, what about your perspective, Luis? Well, I think that this is a question that we ask ourselves, and we can answer every year in a different way, because the cities change, the world changes, and one thing needs to be permanent. We need the mobility and cities to be made and built for people. People must come first, and then safety and behavior are basic. so people can drive their vehicles in the cities with safety, and this is essential. So I'd like to say a few terms here. We have more and more the public spaces in the cities being used by different vehicles, and it's always a dispute for the space. And it's very important for us to understand this space and understand this urban dynamics, so they're able to build a more qualified city for these people. So we've been developing several surveys to help the public power to take the best decision and make the best interventions in terms of effectiveness, not only for road safety but sustainability as well, and from the perspective of this dispute for the public space to take the best decision. So let me give you a few examples. We have a partnership of a technical cooperation with the Brazilian Mobility Panel and the Mobility Institute, together with the City Hall of São Paulo, Fortaleza, and Rio de Janeiro, and Belo Horizonte. And in each of the cities, we are developing surveys from this public data, but incorporating other data as well, to analyze how these interventions can be effective. So thinking about motorcycles, for example, talking about road safety, the motorcycles are the main users who are at risk currently in Brazil. In the last 10 to 15 years, the fleet has increased and the number of fatal accidents have increased as well. So this is a big challenge, and we're conducting several studies here in São Paulo to analyze here in São Paulo and other regions in Brazil, which is that space before the traffic lights, to analyze the effect of this intervention in terms of accidents. We've seen that there's a reduction of 20% in number of accidents. So this is a change that I agree that vehicles are very important, but the city is important as well. The urban design of the roads is also essential. And we can do interventions from the public power and reinforce this as a society so that we are able to save lives. And this is another example of study that I've been conducting with MIDI as well, who is promoting our event here today. We conducted a series of studies where we analyzed the distribution of public space in the city of São Paulo. We have an idea that there's no space, and actually we have space, but the space is under dispute, and it's allocated according to the way the city has been built. And our history here is that the city was built for the vehicles and for these vehicles to run at high speeds, and this has increased the risk. It's very risky to be a citizen walking in the street, an elder or a child, because we're all pedestrians before we drive a vehicle, and cyclists and so on. So what we have been showing is that there's a lot of asphalt, a lot of roads, and we can reduce the quantity of roads to prioritize different forms of transportation. Maybe just adjusting the lanes in São Paulo, we are able to have 2 million square meters of asphalt that we can transform into bike pathways. We can turn into urban vegetation and other types of use. Another study that we are launching is parking spaces, which is something that needs to be discussed. So there are several studies that have been developing to qualify these discussions, because sometimes we are discussing only assumptions and ideas, and the city, based on people and based on technology and data, the cities need to be a city with public policy, with decisions taken on data, and other sectors need to get in touch with each other. And just to complement, we had a discussion last month and studies for risk factors for bike drivers. The number of accidents has been decreased from 2010 to 2020, but for bike drivers it's been increasing. And with the apps, this has been increasing even more, because we have more trips, not only the risk behavior, but this is a challenge as well. So what are these factors? Speed is a factor.
And we have to, have measures, to check it, you know, check the behaviors, to reduce the speed of the drivers, and also the behavior, thinking about, you know, the CFC and the permanent qualification for, and then we have the challenge, you know, to educate throughout the life. So we really hope to have a city that's more with mobility for everyone. So up to now, I would like, you know, to tell you some of the ideas that have been presented. You know, some of them are very important. First of all, I would like to tell you that I've tried and I really enjoyed it. You really feel like you're driving a motorbike, you know. And talking about some of the criteria that you've mentioned, you know, I think that it's important to base our politics on metrics, on those index, you know, that will allow us to compare with other cities in the world and put the topic not only, for example, the delivery guy on the motorbike, but put it on the context of the city, because we really have to think about this topic. Because if you look at it from an isolated point of view, then we're not getting the whole scope that might be provoking certain situations like accidents, crisis, and even sometimes, you know, like traffic jams. That could be, you know, the reason why one situation might come around. For example, increase of mortality or anything like that. Sometimes it's not even like motorbikes, but other type of situations such as accidents that could be, you know, causing traffic jam in different situations. But I'd like to add another idea. It's very important to compare to other cities in the world, you know, having data that allow us to compare to other cities in the world. For example, about a week ago, I was in Lima, Peru. The transit is very aggressive, you know, but where is it more aggressive? Lima, Peru, or São Paulo, or Buenos Aires, where I have been recently as well. So having these metric comparisons and research, you know, they're very important to develop politics, just like as my friend does over here. So, Claudia, Felipe, and Luis, I would like to thank you so much, because for a long time we've been talking about, you know, to talk about motorbikes. You know, motorbikes has been introduced in the traffic after the cars. So the traffic streets, they were not ready for motorbikes. And non-research has been done about it. So our current regulation here from São Paulo is very brave, you know, and it has decided to establish an exclusive lane on the road, on the avenue, 23rd of May. It's not exclusive, but, you know, it's you should give the right for the motorbikes. And in order to implement this lane, you know, it comes in order to organize the traffic, and it's based on statistics. So CET, which the traffic organ, has these statistics. And the mayor was very brave, because we don't have the double retention lane, you know. We brought the double retention lane in 2008 from Thailand, in order to, you know, make the Article 29, second paragraph from our legislation, that every single vehicle should respect the pedestrians, the big, the smalls, the ones that have engine and the ones without engine. So the double retention lane is to help, you know, the motorbikes, because they are smaller than the cars and the buses, for example. So they should have some type of priority. But once we put them on the double lane, and now they're putting them between the lanes 1 and 2 of the main avenues, you are actually respecting the right of the motorbike drivers, you know. And we're not only talking about like the ones that use motorbikes for working reasons, you know. The ones that use the motorbikes like as professionals is only 30%. The other ones are just people that are using the motorbikes as a way of transport, you know. So we have to support the initiatives from, you know, our city hall, both on the double lane and on the blue lane. And we should also develop products that should be at least safe enough for someone who doesn't have like a great education. So the ABS brake, it helps if the driver doesn't have like a great experience. Stronger lights to be used at nighttime, like LED lights. So this type of product with high technology on our daily basis really brings some benefits for the motorcycle driver to not be involved in an accident. But unfortunately, we have to be we have to take two steps back, because we don't have enough education. So this morning I spoke about it, the simulator is to help to prepare them, to educate them, because today, unfortunately, the system is anachronic. Today you have like a small education, almost like a when you do the training, they don't really have the qualification, and at the end they go out on the street without ever being on a street driving a bike. So this simulator is especially important because of that, because you have to train them for experience they have never experienced before, And, we have to be careful because people that spend more time on traffic, they don't really suffer a lot of accidents because they gather experience with it. But the ones that have less experience, they tend to suffer more accidents. So a research was done in 2012 called Accident Causes Project. This data is public, and it shows that those that stay longer on motorbikes, they suffer less accidents. So training, having the capacity, qualification, it's something very important. So when we look back to the training, we can see that people that have not been well trained are more disposed to accidents. So we have to be aligned with other companies in order to improve the training of the driver, of the cycler. So we have to respect, the different lanes, the organized lanes, but not in an aggressive way. Lima is very aggressive, more than São Paulo. Buenos Aires has become lately very aggressive. It didn't used to be like that. We are trying to be less aggressive. We've done some advances, but we still have a long way to go. Thank you so much. But now I'd like to go back. How much more aggressive is in Lima comparing to São Paulo, How much more aggressive is Buenos Aires comparing to São Paulo? That's why we need metrics. That's why we need research. And then I'd like to highlight two other things that Fernando has mentioned, We need to have education to change the culture. So whenever you're driving a motorbike, car, or a truck, if you take a look at the whole context, not only from the motorbikes, but from the other vehicles, for example, we see that the trucks and the buses, sometimes they take very bad decisions. So we have to really work on those evaluations. And as he has mentioned, education in both senses, ethics, values, not to be aggressive, consider the others. And second point, very important, competences when we have to manipulate the vehicle. First of all, I would like to thank for the partnerships that you guys have, congratulate the partnerships that you guys have with the City Hall, and I would like to highlight how much data, São Paulo has. São Paulo is one of the first cities in Brazil to make decision based on data, and the blue lane was they've tried, to do some lanes exclusive to bikes in São Paulo previously, but now we have a lane that is right in the middle of the two first lanes. So there are a lot of things that are going on, and it seems that it's working, with the preliminary data. So Brazil, it's very, enthusiastic. Every single city in Brazil, it's very enthusiastic, waiting for our research. They've been talking to Senatra with the Infrastructure Ministry to evaluate this constantly. So This is very important. And from the point of view of behavior and education, I think that we should bring to the table, I completely agree with you, but what I'd like to say is that if we have, a speed management, that's one of the main risk factors, where the avenues from a specific city has a speed limit of 70 kilometers per hour in an intra-urban, there is no point, there is nothing that will save a pedestrian from, that, if a car hits you at 70 km an hour, you have like 92% of chance of dying. So when we're talking about the safety on traffic, we have to actually go for the right approach. So, for example, in other countries, one of the main principles is the share responsibility. So things have to be shared. So when we're talking about the safety devices on the motorbikes, our training, the trainings that we have for the motorcyclists, it's terrible. This is on the table right now for debate and has to be improved. But also the continued training, it really impacts how much impact it creates on the how to reduce, the accidents. So this has to be associated both with when you do like the traffic design, and cities are very different when we're talking about it. In Brazil, cities are very different, but then if you're going to compare with cities in India or in China or in other places around the globe, so we have different contexts, from culture context. They really demand, different features. For example, I was in Copenhagen in the beginning of last week, which is a huge reference city when we're talking about, sharing space. Amsterdam, the same thing. But then we're talking about a few cities in India. It's so many types of vehicles at the same time that the speed has to be really low and they don't have too many accidents. So the way that they deal with that is very different. For example, São Paulo, if you're going to put on the table like motor taxi, for example, it's a huge taboo, In the northeast of Brazil, even less. In India, even less, So if you don't get, the cultural features, the metrics, and the index that you have from the region, we're going to try to import, legislations from one place to the other, and they will not really work. And how important it is to have the data, to have the right training, to have the right research. And then we're not talking about only like public measures, The private measures should also be done based on data, so we have a city that's more fair. Okay, so when we're talking about the city paradigm, we have 5 implementation agents. So the first, the policymakers or the governments. Second, the educators, Third, the companies. The companies are also here today, both the publics and the private ones, and also the digital platforms, and the new format companies, marketing, so on. 4 factors, the artists, because without the artists, we don't touch the soul of the city. For example, someone has told me, maybe, let's say, if Angelina Jolie says, I believe that the traffic has to be less aggressive, people will tend to listen better if I say it myself. Or on the 5th factor, the common person, could be interacting on a motorbike or without any vehicle. And also like the feminine criteria. So do you think that the women are riding bike, and do you think that women feel the same way that my friends are talking? Well, I do truly believe so. So Afonso, do you have the data for women? Well, currently we have about 25% of the people with the driver license for motorbikes. 1/4 of them are women, and they suffer less accidents than men, let's put it that way. because they're more careful, you know. They expose themselves to the risk much less. So I think that's more like related to the behavior. So it's always great to hear, you know, different opinions, different criterias. A lot of times we believe that we have like the whole truth around us, but the truth is something that is shared, so we have different faces to it. That's why it's so important to ask the diversities. Okay, so keep it on going now on our chat. I would like each one of you to comment about a specific success case from your company as a contribution to the society, to the new cities, to the cities that we want to live in. So should I start with myself? Okay, so when we talk about training, education, you know, we're talking about training itself. And I believe that you've mentioned the issue regarding, you know, continuing education, so the education throughout the life cycle. So I think that for the driver, this should not be so different. Currently, we have like the pilot from the airplane, you know, it's a player that is responsible for some activity. So it has like X hours of training required. So when we think about that, everything that happens in our country, I think our model, our most important model is like on the road are the vehicles.
So the drivers, they transport everything that we need in any sort of manifestation that we have, any issue that we have, anything that makes traffic worse. It's a big confusion, and what we've seen in our projects is, I'm going to mention two projects here, focusing on goods transportation, of dangerous goods transportations, gas transportation, for example. Companies have a protocol to train the drivers every year and really look at the performance of these drivers and analyze this, and together with this data, not only the training data, but the vehicle telemetry data as well. We can analyze this data and we can instruct what the best training required is. And some of these companies that have been working for more than 2 or 3 years, we've seen a change in the behavior of these drivers. They have improved their driving ability, and they have reduced possible accidents. So when we look specifically for the bike mode of transportation, we still need a lot of training because we work with the development of this type of content, but there are few initiatives looking for continued education of these bikers who do deliveries, and have a project with that digital platform that when these people are doing their onboarding in their companies, of these people in the companies, the company analyzes the profile of this driver and the vehicles, and then define if they're going to hire this person or not, or what kind of training this person needs to change their behavior. So these are companies that are really concerned about these accidents and how this impairs their business. We talk a lot about preservation of life, but there are several other points that are important as well. The cost of the vehicles, fuel costs, and damage to the brand reputation as well if you have a serious accident. For this case, is any type of a serious accident involving a biker that does delivery, it reaches the media, the audience can critique it and comment, so this is a work that needs to be done. But currently we have a few transportation modes that have this theme and a more mature situation, and we've seen these changes. So let's change the order. Afonso, sorry, I've said Fernando, but my name is Afonso. You look like Fernando, I'm just joking. So Afonso, please. Yeah, what I can say about Yamaha is that Yamaha has adopted since 2015 and its risk matrix, the need for safety actions and the need to mitigate traffic accidents for the brand, concerned about the brand image. And I think this was the first step of sustainability regarding ESG that involves the education of these drivers. Because in Brazil, 30% of the bikers don't have a driver's license. It's hard to talk about these figures and these numbers because we're not there inquiring each of the drivers to see if they have a driver's license or not. But this is the result from our project. But 30% don't have a driver's license, so we're already 4 steps behind. First, we need to get these people their driver's license. And many of the cases that we've seen that are interesting for Yamaha is to get together with the government of the state of Amazonas, where we have a factory, to really make it easier for these people to get a driver's license, so that the people can really be regulated and have a valid driver's license. It's a big project that we embraced. Although it's a public policy, we helped adjust the means for this project. And another very common practice is sometimes we go to the streets, and the dealers help us a lot with that, to do pit stops. And what does this mean? We have these drivers and simulate some traffic situations when they're in a greater vehicle, and then they see what are the blind spots so that they can't see the bikes. And then they understand that for them as bike drivers, they need to avoid these risk situations, because these people who are driving the larger vehicles, sometimes they don't know how to position the rearview mirrors in the right position. Sometimes they don't use the lights, and we show our videos, and we do these campaigns on our dealers to some way mobilize with the public power this reversed roads. We did it in several places. We have been doing this for more than 10 years, and we already work with many bike drivers per year, but it's a success case because people start to understand. And if of this 10,000 bikers per year, we save one of them from a fatal accident, it's worth all this effort and the hard work. So the idea is to help these bike drivers to drive their bikes in a safer way and use all the resources they have, for example, distance to the vehicle ahead, understand how this vehicle is going to move, and how to try to avoid these risks. I think this is the great case for Yamaha. Congratulations for Yamaha. This is a great example and a great application of this case to save lives, ultimately. Because I think this is the main thing for any city. We can talk about other figures and statistics, but the main thing we need to be concerned is human life and citizens. Yeah, we've developed a few studies that helped in some ways, and some initiatives that helped in different ways. So just to give you a few examples, whenever the city of São Paulo in the last couple of years has planned any bus lanes or exclusive bike lanes in the city, we have been developing together with SPTW the critical points in this network to have special attention for roadway safety when they implement these networks. When I talk about the safe fronts, the study that I mentioned, we're aligned here with Afonso from Yamaha, and we have some other studies from Spain that show that maybe this is not the best solution, but for São Paulo it's effective, and this allowed us to create an action plan for the road safety plan for São Paulo. So this ended this discussion. So there are some strategic measures that are important, and some other discussions as well that go beyond the design of the cities. We have done some studies analyzing why this road safety in Fortaleza and in the case of Belo Horizonte as well have good results in avoiding deaths in the first decade as established by ONU. So we're trying to bring this learning to other cities and metropolitan regions as well. There's another initiative that is Rede Voz Completa, a partnership with the government of the state of São Paulo, and other companies and mayors, where we're working with 30 cities in the countryside of the state to bring safety, because we're talking about qualification and education of the citizens and the drivers, but the public managers, the public policies, the technicians, they need to undergo a change of paradigm as well for the city that we're trying to build. It's a way of seeing the city, not what it needs to be, how it needs to be transformed. And another discussion that we've been having is not only for road safety, but not about what kind of city we wanted. We have some cities that are very concentric with pendular movements. São Paulo is the greatest case in the country. And we have very weak discussions of how to decentralize the cities in a more reasonable way, to develop different centers so that we can work with other modes of transportation, with electric vehicles to reduce emissions as well. So cities for people are cities where people don't die of respiratory disease because there is no such emissions of gases. And there's a lot of people dying due to these gas emissions of respiratory diseases, as much as people have dying in the roads. And we've been doing these studies to show that we can really build different centers. I think this we need to take a step back regarding the public policy. It's a very difficult discussion to have. It's a complex discussion, but we hope that in the next few years we can contribute with this discussion as well, and other organizations that discuss this as well. And always intersectors, because we're here at an innovation event. We have great innovations that contribute to these changes of the cities, and everything needs to be connected and integrated with the public policies to build an integrated and connected cities for the citizens. Just to comment regarding electrification for motorbikes, there's still a bad economic review, because if we consider the bikes, electricity is still more expensive for the bikes, for the motorcycles, so it's not feasible for the citizens as well. And we have other factors as well, but I think this is the main factor, which is the economic factor. I think it's really important to have this point of view, because what Luis just mentioned, it's important to understand the general context of the cities. And that's why in 2018, UNESCO launched this media cities, our cities with, we need to change the perspective of the cities. We need to change the way we see the cities. We need to change the metrics of how we assess the cities. And we need metrics that allow us to compare to other cities in the world and allow us to analyze case by case of motorcycles, for example, but in a greater context, which includes urban feasibility, urban mobility, the diversity of different vehicles included in the cities, and start to think about different transportation modes that are more interesting, maybe electrical or not. But it's important to think of the city as a whole in a strategic way, and not only at short term, but in a multimode way and multi-professional way, not only because of by urbanists and architects, but sociologists, psychologists, because health and road health and is important. And health is not only physical health, it's mental and psychological health as well. So you have to move since Itaquera here in São Paulo all the way to Osasco to work and then come back. This person, their mind, the quality of life is not good at the end of the day and at the end of the year. So we're talking about the cities that we want. And now, because since we have don't have a lot of time, I would like each one of you to talk again, of course, about the city that you want to live in, but also I'd like you to talk about the future. How are your companies or your organizations in the future can contribute for this future as quickly as possible? All of you have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Let's change. Let's start by Luis. Okay, so yeah, you just throw me under the bus, huh? I thought it was going to be Claudia, the first one to speak. Yeah, it's not easy to be the first one, right? Yeah, well, I expect that in the future we can contribute to create a culture that is based, that all the decisions are based on evidence, that we are able to, together with everyone involved, to build this culture, because we're running in circles as a society if we are not taking our decisions based on science. We are at a time that there are some negation of science, and this is not good for the society as a whole. It's something that we need to build as a society. And my final considerations, I guess, we don't have a lot of time. So 20 more seconds for my last considerations. Afonso, I agree, and I don't believe that electrification is a silver bullet, like people say it. And I talk about 15-minute mobility of small electrical modes and electric public transportation as well. There are some challenges to produce the energy, the batteries. There's a lot of challenges that are under discussion. But regarding the electrical vehicle productive chain and all of these things, there's a lot of things to be discussed. So I'd like to wrap up, to thank for the opportunity to discuss with you. It has been very enriching. We have a lot of things to discuss here, but it's really good to know that we have shared visions and complementary perspectives here. You decide. Who's next? Afonso. Well, thank you, Felipe, and thank you, Luis. I agree with you, and I think that based on science and statistics, we will have positive things in the future. And the main thing, we need to value people. At Yamaha today, the internal policy of the people, of the company, is to develop the people. So we believe in the ideas that these people have, and we trust that they're going to respond to these ideas, either driving a bike or walking on the city or a bike. Yamaha believes in the people, and that's what we've been investing, looking for human mobility and not urban mobility. I think this is the big challenge for Yamaha in the future. Our world president is going to do some announcement. Unfortunately, can't talk about it, but it's related to road safety, and we have a plan for 2030 to really improve the life of people. The focus for Yamaha is to work to improve the life of people. Thank you. It's good to hear from a company like Yamaha, represented here by Afonso, that is concerned about this, and we hope that this can be not only here in Brazil but for the world, because Yamaha is a multinational company. So now you can wrap up, Claudia. Okay, so when I think about this question and what we expect for the future in terms of training and technology, which is what we do at Yonder. We are a DTAC company, and I think that humans are in the center of everything. The technologies are means to an end. It's not the end, and we hope that data can be used for us to understand the profile of these people and what they need, in fact. And we're still looking at regionalization. Yonder has traffic instructors all over the country here in Brazil. They associate and they provide our training, because we understand that each region in the country has a different culture, is a different region, and has different needs. And that's it. I think this training must be customized, and that's what we are going to use technology for. I'd like to take the opportunity to be here on this panel with all of you and exchange the experience, and I learned a lot. Thank you very much. So I think that the final word that my colleagues just mentioned, what we need is cities that have the citizens in the center. The motto or the slogan, the main slogan of the cities of UNESCO should be that the citizens in the core. I'd like to thank you all here from our colleagues in the panel, the organizers of the event, and all of you in the audience, the citizens who are here, sitting here, listening to us and providing our support to our ideas and our perspectives. Thank you, everyone, and we can continue discussing on our social media about all of these subjects, and together, let's build the city that we want to live in. It might be a mill city here in São Paulo, or in Natal, or other states, Nova Delhi, or even Buenos Aires, Arequipa, Lima, Havana. That's it. Thank you. Bye-bye. Good afternoon, everyone.
Obrigado.